Welcome to Get Serious. We're at Serious Land Capital. We've successfully funded over $6 million worth of vacant land deals and have industry-leading 41% operating margins. Today, I wanted to share a couple notes, specific to productivity and kind of ensuring that you can maintain the work groove here. I think this is a really popular topic, especially coming in after the holidays, and folks are trying to maintain New Year's resolutions or momentum heading into another 12-month sprint that so many of us really fall into one way or another. Especially living in the U.S. capitalist economies here. I'm certainly no different. There was definitely, maybe I'm the only one here, but I think, especially coming out of the holidays sometimes, getting back into the groove here of just like, okay, I'm just set, back into the day, and I can just, operate almost, robotically and take care of business. I found myself struggling a bit more with that this year. I just felt like a little bit more distracted and still had some extra errands to run and so forth. Sometimes my energy wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be coming into the day too, middle of winter and so forth, even though I live in Central Texas, where we generally have beautiful weather for much of the year, at least hotter weather. The daylight isn't as good and so forth. Like every excuse in the book, right? I'm probably not the only one here, but I'll at least be vulnerable and mention some things that I was struggling with. And what I often find with myself too is like when I really kind of feel that inertia of just getting started with anything, and I know I have some of these key tasks to take care of, like the more minutes that pass by, even the more seconds that pass by, it's like almost I get more tired and less energized even thinking about it more, and it's even harder to just get started on the smallest things. And that's a tough thing about being an entrepreneur sometimes too, is like I have home office and so forth. I don't have somebody staring over my shoulder and cracking the whip. Like I have to be cracking my own whip against myself. So that's just another thing you have to keep in mind when if the buck stops with you, like that's just the trade-off you have to keep in mind, is you have to maintain the discipline to ensure you're keeping your forward momentum. And it's like almost embarrassing to admit some of these times. It's like, man, why can't I do even just the simplest thing to get started here? Just feeling worse and worse about myself. I'm just like, man, when am I actually going to get to this? And then you can start building up just this, deadline pressure. And it's like, oh my God, I really need to get something done here, or I'm not going to hit the goals that I set for myself and my team and other constituents and clients and so forth that are counting on me, family, etc. here. And then that can like finally start to kick into gear, and just like, wanting to have like, okay, what's the smallest possible win that you can get today? Like, it's not going to be perfect, but what can you still do to make this day worthwhile? Like trying to figure out every trick in the book, or like change your state a little bit. You got to, jump on the little trampoline here. Just try to, move around a little bit, get outside of drowsiness sometimes. Like there's so many other methods to attempt, and usually physical activity will help a lot more with this. But I'm kind of laying the groundwork here to share some items that I think are, just more effective. And, a handful of quotes and a handful of frameworks here. One is that I've just found, tends to prove true more often than not, is that work will work when nothing else will work. Kind of a bit of a tongue twister there, but it's like when you're just in just a, crappy mind space, like, you have to figure out something that can just move the puck forward in your business, somewhere in your life, just to develop, get even the slightest momentum, even for like 10 seconds, and let that start to build up. Because, you have these goals for a reason. You built a plan for yourself, and you have a vision and direction that you want to head into, which you would assume that you had put together when you were in like a more optimistic and more energetic mindset. So like, that that's the pathway you want to go on. So why can't you just follow those steps in order to achieve that? so many of the, like the James Clears and so forth, these habit specialists and everything, is like, you got to just make things as easy as possible just to get started on them. And then I was reminded as well too, as I started to build more momentum, especially over the last couple days here, um, uh, following Sharran Srivatsaa, again, he's a managing partner at acquisition.com, outstanding real estate guy as well too. And I heard him remark on this before, I just forgotten it, but now it's just an extra reminder. He's like, um, actions first, feelings second, which goes part and parcel to what I was just mentioning before. It's like, okay, you have these plans and goals that you already set for yourself. You can't rely on your feelings to get you there. And generally the best feelings that you're going to have are when you actually take those actions in the first place. So it's like, you can't rely on what your internal state is. Again, your best feelings are going to come after you take those actions. So what do I have on my task list that I just need to start knocking down? What's the smallest thing to even get the ball rolling slightly in the right direction, even if it's just a millimeter, that is just so low cost that it would be just like ridiculous. Can I type one word in relation to an email? Like, how basic can you make it just to start building momentum here? Like, again, some of this seems like almost ridiculous to mention, but we're human beings, right? Like, it's just, we're not AI, we're not robots. Like, you oftentimes, like, you need to figure out tricks and certain mindsets, whatever it takes, like, to just start taking those actions to achieve what we would like. Like, there's a reason only a handful of folks like really achieve incredible freedom, success in their lives, because you have to take these type of actions all the time. Like, it's not easy to do that. So that's why, like, it's helpful to remind myself and talk about it within this forum as well here too. And so when you have that mindset of, again, that actions first, feeling second, like, I think it's a 100% success rate. Like, when I've taken the right actions, there has never, like, the things that are like positively related. I'm actually doing the work that I'm heading in the direction of the goals that I set for myself. Like, there has never, or at least nothing within recollection that I ever regretted taking those actions, or ever felt bad or felt worse when I did take those actions. So, like, when you kind of frame it like that, and I know when you're stuck in some of those negative cycles or just negative mindsets, it's like, it's so hard to remind yourself of that, because you're so stuck. But this is almost something to return to. It's like, okay, yeah, start taking those actions, because literally every single time you have done this, even the small steps forward, you always feel better every single time. So, like, know where those good feelings are going to follow. I exercise a lot, physical activity. I mean, it's like a foundation of humanity. We would all be far better if we had more physical activity, exercise. Like, I don't need to beat a dead horse about that. Everybody knows that. Few people do it. But same thing too, like, I have my trainers set up regimens and so forth. Like, earlier today, even in Texas, sun wasn't really out yet. I mean, it was wind chill right around 40 degrees or something. Just like, yeah, my body did not want to move, but I'm just like forcing myself to be out there. I'm like, God, this just sucks. Like, for the first probably 5 to 10 minutes. And then your body starts warming up, and it's like, oh, this starts feeling like pretty good. And by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I'm really glad I was out there and didn't have to go do this later as well too. And so, like, that is something I probably say less than half the time that I ever go to do exercise, like, I'm actually like gung ho to go do it, heading into a workout. Like, it's more often than not of that, just, God, I just don't want to be here. I want to be doing something else, more exciting, whatever. But then you just get your body moving, you follow the plan, and the actions lead to those better feelings. So, something to note from there. And then, what I also found very helpful too, especially over these last couple of weeks, is Sharran had, on his mynextbillion.com website, highly recommend that. He does like 1 or 2 blogs per week, shorter articles, in relation to his lessons across his business history and, working at acquisition.com. And he just has this action equation, which I really like. And you should read it for yourself here, but in the key takeaways here, as we wrap this episode up, is that he frames it as outcomes, or the outcome multiplied by stakes is greater than the cost plus the distraction. For example, an outcome could be, some monetary thing that you're trying to achieve. You're going to like make $1 million if you take, um, this certain initiative and build out this system within your business, or, find these certain deals that are just going to require a lot of, like the outcome. That's what we all dream. We could just have it, have it in our lap, without, or with as little effort as possible. Like the stakes are, what are your deadlines? Like, what are you going to lose if you don't try to achieve that particular outcome? And then the cost could be all the work that you have to do, or the money involved, whatever. But usually, like, it's some level of just mental effort, physical effort, what have you, interpersonal relations, difficult conversations, etc. And then the distraction just could be like everything else going on. What's your day-to-day operations, your family, just your dealing with human tasks or notifications, Slack, email, etc. All of that. So more often than not, Sharran is pointing out that the stakes tend to be zero. So whenever, we know from our, basic math we learned in elementary schools that if you multiply anything by zero, the result is zero. So zero can't inherently be greater than the cost plus distraction, because there's always going to be a cost and distraction. So, unless you solve the stakes side of things, and the cost is the other piece here, because he's like, the outcome's the outcome that you're trying to do it. The distraction is like always going to be there effectively. Yeah, you can try to limit whatever, but it's just a piece of it. So like the two main pieces of the equation that we can adjust are the stakes and the cost. You want to increase the stakes as much as you can, because again, you want to make sure the outcome times the stakes is greater than the cost and distraction, and lower the cost as much as possible. Like the stakes, that's probably where I've struggled the most with, is like, what are my tangible stakes? Again, the buck stops with me as like the business owner here. So, who is breathing down my throat? Like, I have to breathe down my throat in order to get the most things done. Like, I need to have harsher penalties on myself if I don't, achieve the steps needed to get after certain outcomes. I'll probably return to this topic more often because I find it just so useful. And then the cost is similar to what I mentioned before, is you just want to, like, what is that, 1 millimeter direction that you can start taking action on to reduce the cost as much as possible. So, don't look at this, 3-month project as, one just insanely large cost that you're just going to have to dive into. Again, like, can it start with one word, opening up an email draft to start sending to somebody, that just starts to grease the wheels. And then all of a sudden, like, you get past that inertia, and like one task starts falling, one after another here, and you can just start stacking things together. Some folks would say, yeah, always do your hard thing first, nothing else. I get that. But sometimes, like for me personally, like if I can just start getting into a little bit of a groove, take a couple of easier ones first, and that gets my mindset ready to be like, okay, I'm in like a work mode now, and now I can just like start knocking down the dominoes. So you kind of got to figure out what your personal preference might be, or maybe what mindset you might be in a certain day. Maybe some days you can just start into that huge hairy task right off the bat and save everything for later. So you got to fluctuate based on the day as well too. So hopefully this one is helpful here. Use task managers as well too when you get that dopamine hit of, and I've just started like labeling even just like the smallest little task things that'll take 2 minutes. That just feels good. Give yourself some wins where it's like, okay, I'm making progress forward. Like, you got to do whatever it takes to make sure you're providing the value and keeping the ball rolling for the goals that you have set for yourself. SeriousLand.capital for any of your land funding needs, $50K minimum purchase price. Subscribe and share, everybody. Take care. Talk to you next time.